All right, I am here with Censored Anon. What's up, Censored Anon?
Nothing much. You invited me for an interview, talk about what I do and what I've been up to and all kinds of things. So,
For the people who don't know, and the Will to Power audience, or anybody who's checking this podcast out who's not familiar with you, tell us who you are and a little bit about your background.
sure. So, I'm Censored Anon, of course. My name originally comes from something called Censored Mask. And what I was trying to achieve with making that name was that I always felt censored in the world around me. And I always felt like I was putting on a mask around other people, hence the moniker Censored Mask, which became Censored Anon later on. And I started my YouTube channel about two years ago, and didn't originally intend to create like really complicated videos. Originally, I intended to do like sort of like rant videos, but that evolved over time as I decided to start talking about just my life experiences. And so I ended up making a lot of like philosophical content. And so that's what I like to make is I like to make videos about my life experiences, ironically being very honest about like like what I've been through in life. So, not it didn't fit the moniker later on, but like Censored Anon became for me like this way for me to express myself in a really honest way that I hadn't been able to mostly in my life.
That's interesting you go there. I was actually going to ask this a little bit later, but I guess I'll ask
Mm-hmm.
it now. And I'm always interested in people's kind of experiential influences. Like a lot of my current politics isn't so much shaped by what I've read as much as it is by what I've done and what I've experienced and what I've learned just in life. So, what were some of the experiential influences you had that kind of slowly brought you to this point, and how have you expressed that on YouTube exactly? Because I find that interesting.
Um, let's see what has brought me to this point. I guess a lot of the experiences that I've had in life, I felt like they weren't things I could easily talk to most people about. Like they were things that I always felt like alienated me from having a connection with other people. And I always was afraid that people were going to judge me harshly if I actually started talking about the detail of my experiences, because that's what I had been used to in most of my life. I'm kind of a private person, or at least I used to be, before I kind of found a way to be honest with other people. And so I spent a lot of time like just concealing myself, hiding myself from other people, and not being very open or outgoing. And so like when I started the channel, like I started to like I felt like I wasn't sure what to do to make content. I wasn't sure what I was going to create, and just like I felt I kept feeling like, well, what can I do that is going to be a lot different from what other people do? And I thought, well, the I think probably the unique thing about me is my given collection of experiences that I've had in life. And so, okay, I'm going to talk about those things. I'm going to talk about the things that bother me the most, that I've struggled with, that maybe put it out there, the stories I've been through, so that maybe like I can not only like find resolution with those things, but maybe other people can like be helped in the process. Like they can hear what I have to say, and as a result, maybe resolve some of the stuff that they've been through, or not feel like alone.
Well,
Does
yeah,
that does that make
yeah, it
sense?
does. And I think kind of like that alienation is a very widespread thing in the United States. It's been growing for a long time. I noticed that whenever I was getting there, it felt like it was getting worse. So you mentioned you kind of talk about a lot of the things you're going through in your YouTube channel. Like, what's a recent experience, or what's kind of an experience you've recently talked about on your YouTube channel?
So, let's see, something I've recently talked about, and I think this was one of my favorite videos that I've had to work on so far. It was called "The Ruins of Men's Visions," and it was actually about my experience with my church growing up and that falling apart, and my church growing up and that falling apart. That was because that was like a very significant, that had a huge and significant impact on my life. I was raised a Protestant, and I pretty much just went to a Presbyterian church all my life. And we were like a very small church. And so that was a lot of my connection that I had with other people, was people in that church, not anyone else. I didn't really have school friends. I didn't go to school. I was homeschooled, so I didn't have a lot of social connections. And so like when that church finally like fell apart, I was actually kicked out of the church.
Wow.
Number one, and
Wait, what happened? Hold on. I got to hear about this. So the church fell apart. I thought about asking about that, but you just told me you were kicked out. So I got to interrupt the story a little bit. So you were kicked out of the church.
Yep, that's right.
What was the drama? What led to that occurring?
Let me explain. So for a while, I had started to become estranged from the church because of the new pastor that had came in. The old pastor I was actually close friends with. He was like a mentor to me, and he really took care of me and directed me in life, especially as a young man. Well, when the new pastor had come in, he didn't come in under the best circumstances. He was really a political pick for a clique in the church, basically. And so he came in, and he was the kind of guy who didn't like being questioned, who wanted you to fall in line and listen to him, or you're being divisive and you're being a bad person. And so I was that person that was divisive. But particularly just because I had politics that were different from other people. I had started to kind of like manifest my character in opposition to a lot of perspectives that he had, not as a reaction to him being there, but I just had started to develop my politics in a certain way. I started to develop myself in a certain way, and that put me at odds with him. Well, eventually there was an incident with my brother and his little friend. A lot of the young men in my church started going wayward, and they started getting into drugs and alcohol, and it was starting to become a problem. And this is particularly because a lot of the young men in church were just being treated badly and discriminated against, more or less, because we had been one of those churches that put women in particular on a pedestal, and that made a lot of the young men just feel like bad and alienated, and so they started acting out in their own way. Well, the way that my little brother and his little friend started acting out was, well, they started drinking together. One of his friends had like a perchant for mixing cough syrup and alcohol, which was not good. So there was an incident where he didn't react well, and I was there. I was in the area, and I got a call from my little brother, and I basically picked them up and I took them to the hospital. Well, obviously the church ended up hearing about this, and they more or less wanted to interrogate my little brother. And I knew how he felt about it. And so I didn't, and I knew that my father wasn't going to stand up for and defend my little brother. So I tried to get in on that meeting. At first, I asked nicely, they wouldn't let me in. And so I basically stood outside the door and I tried to bust in as soon as like they started like clamping down on my brother and essentially blaming him for the incident. And like I wasn't going to tolerate it, and I wanted my brother to know to feel like I was trying to stand up for him at least. Well, I eventually got like physically removed from the room by the deacon and the pastor there, and after that, I texted the pastor and I said, you better leave my brother alone, which he took that as a threat and said, well, if you come back to church, we're going to have you arrested. So don't. So we're working on, excommunicating you now. And so they ended up excommunicating me from my childhood church for that reason.
Wow. Well, I want to interrupt this story one more time. And, I was kind of telling people earlier this week that we were going to have this interview. And one of the things I mentioned whenever I told people just kind of my opinion of you is I thought you had a really good character. And I think this story kind of indicates a little bit of the courage and the honor you have, the fact that you're willing to stand up and vocalize your opinions, and also that fact that you're willing to stand up for your brother. So I really respect that you did that. And then, so what kind of changed after that, or what was kind of the fallout for that, if you could continue with that?
Yeah, of course. So
what did it change you? That's kind of, I guess, what I'm a little bit more concerned with. Like, how did that change your opinions and philosophies, and how did you personally move forward from that?
In a lot of ways, I had felt abandoned by the church and the people that I was so connected to throughout my life, and it impacted me on a viscerally, I would say, negative level, because it caused me to become really depressed. I wasn't sure of my direction in life. I felt like I had to find another church because I needed a church to connect with other people. It was the only way that I knew how to, because, like I mentioned earlier, I was homeschooled, so I didn't make a lot of connections with other people, and making connections with people outside of church was extremely difficult because I felt like I didn't have any common ground with them. And then, so basically what I was at that time was I ended up being wayward. I would try to find a different church, but I couldn't quite connect, and that made me feel even worse. And so at that point, I kind of just didn't go to church anymore, and I started kind of drifting from Christianity in that time. I think that was around like 2017, and I wouldn't say that I stopped drifting until around 2020. Funny enough, well, late 2020. But that the way that it bothered the way that it bothered me so much was, I always felt like this is your, like, I was told a lot that this is like your church family. So they're not only like just people you go to church with or you spend time with, they are your family. And that means that, you open up with them, you talk with them, you treat them like they are family. And then to be rejected like that, it made me feel like Cain, and it was just horrible. It was just horrible. And in that video that I was telling you about, the ruins of men's visions, I talk about that. I talk about like the church and what I had gone through there and how that impacted me and my journey since then. And I also talk about another Christian ministry that I was involved with, that had a similar case where it kind of like fell apart, and I was a part of it, and it had an impact on my life. So that's kind of like what that was about. I hope that answers the question.
That's a really interesting story as well. So I'll drop a link in the description, and I'm sure I hope my listeners will check out that story. Out of curiosity, kind of what is your personal philosophy currently? Like, how do you approach life? How do you approach politics? That sort of thing.
So my approach to life is, I believe in like ultra responsibility, right?
Mhm.
You should take as much responsibility for your life as possible. Don't leave things up to be decided by other people. Take action. Take responsibility. You're responsible for your finances. You're responsible for where you live. You're responsible for who you talk with. You're responsible for who you date. Like, you're responsible for your connection, your family, and your friends. Like, everything is within your control to a large degree. So I don't believe in, making a lot of excuses, and I don't believe in like, playing the victim, and acting like, well, circumstances have left me, forever harmed and I cannot help myself. No, I mean, huh?
Out of curiosity, are you an oldest child?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am.
I kind of picked that up. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of a slightly an old. I 100% agree with you. In terms of like the life philosophy thing, yeah, you definitely have to take responsibility for your own life. Like nobody really cares about you that much for the most part. People are worried about themselves. They're usually doing a bad job taking care of themselves, so nobody's going to take care of you. Um, and then for you, what about your political philosophy then? Because I imagine you're not a pure libertarian. Otherwise, I
Mhm.
probably wouldn't be interviewing you right now. So, how would you describe your political philosophy?
So, nowadays I consider myself a third positionist, and how I got here was, originally I was a libertarian. Most of my family was conservative, Republican, and I thought, oh, based on my understanding of history, like, I think libertarian is probably closest to whatever like the old Americans believed. And like, I was like, oh, I want to be in line with American tradition, because I admired military veterans a lot, and I especially admired a lot of the veterans of World War II. And I even had the opportunity to meet quite a few of them because of my grandpa, who he gave me a book called Studs Terkel: The Good War, and that was like the first book that I ever read on World War II. So like, from that, I was like, man, these guys are like amazing. They're patriots, they're heroes, and like, I want to be like them. And so like, libertarian philosophy kind of came out of that for me. But
Never forget that generation also raised the baby boomers.
I know it's insane. The greatest generation begat the worst generation.
Yeah. In any case, and then now you're less into that, I suppose, and more into what?
Yes, I want to explain. So, like, over time, like, I got disenchanted with the American political system, and I did not like it. I didn't like it because it just didn't seem to function well at all. It just became like, really an argument over like, how much money they're going to take from you. And the more that you look into it, the worse it gets. The fact that you cannot change anything. It's an inflexible system. It claims that it's not corrupt while being one of the most corrupt in the entire world. And that influenced like how my politics were. And I would say that a lot of my politics actually got like shaped thoroughly in around 2014 and 2015. I started going to a forum called Iron March. And Iron March was billed itself as a global fascist fraternity. And what it basically was an archive of tons of information, one of the first of its kind on fascism, that presented fascism from a point of view that wasn't like just, out and out negative. And as I started reading more into that, and like understanding it, and like seeing that a lot of the people there had like the same criticisms that I would agree with, of not only the United States government but how government works in our current world. I started to think, well, yeah, maybe I align more with this, and I considered myself a fascist from that point on. And like that meant that more or less that I believed in a government that served us, that worked for us, that
Let me ask that really quick, because you
hmm
said two kind of jargonistic terms there. You said third positionism,
hmm
and you said fascism, which is more of a trigger word for the left in a way. So can
hmm
you explain what you mean by both of those? Because that might not be clear to the audience or people who might be listening. So first of all, like, just really briefly, what is third
hmm
positionism and what
I
is
would say
fascism, and
I would say
how are they different?
I'd say third position is it's neither right nor left in the sense of how it's understood in America. It is not. It is not capitalist. It believes in a socialist economic system. I would say that it is. I would say it believes in government, in an authoritarian style of government. Like that's kind of what third position is in a very meat and potatoes way of understanding it.
In though, like, what separates that from different styles of government, for example, and why is it better?
I think what separates it from different styles of government is that the governments are not like it's intended to take into consideration the like the way that the modern world is today. So life ever since the Industrial Revolution, which would I would say makes it stand in stark contrast to something like monarchism, which was the system before the Industrial Revolution that worked the best. And part of the reason I'm not a monarchist is because I believe that like third position like takes into consideration that we are in that post Industrial Revolution world and actually has systems that are set up relevantly to the way that the world is now. A good example of a government that I believe is a third position government would be like Singapore, and China is like that as well. Because while China, like it proclaims itself to be a communist state, it has economic practices that are extraordinarily socialistic, and they have these corporations as well, but the corporations are beholden to the government. And it's a similar case with Singapore as well. And they're also, at the same time, extraordinarily nationalistic. So I would say that that's like kind of like what a uh, third position is.
Gotcha. It sounds very similar to my sort of political philosophy, where I think we're in a sort of technological age where some sort of melding of the state and high technology, high finance is going to be inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, all throughout history, kind of most governments have been sort of monopolistic mafias, right? It's kind of like, in a way, like that's every government. So it's almost a question of which sort of corporatist or monopolistic mafia do you want to live under, and what kind of ends, be it social, cultural, ethical, do you want it to serve? So I've kind of proposed like something pretty similar, which is a kind of interventionist state with a mixed economy, because even in the case of China, they do have a mixed economy. It's not a purely
Mm-hmm.
state-directed economy, and it seemed to work. What they're doing now seems to work pretty well. But a sort of mixed economy and an interventionist state, which rather than promoting kind of what we have in the West, which is like this kind of fake equality, fake equity, the kind of woke cultural left sort of thing. So rather than kind of valorizing equality, valorizing greatness. So an interventionist state that doesn't promote equality, instead it promotes distinction, greatness, and the sort of virtues and qualities that allow people to succeed in sort of collect or in sort of competitive environments, both individually and kind of collectively. So yeah, I feel like it's very similar. I don't. I have personally tried to steer away from like triggering words like fascism and kind of more esoteric, I would say, philosophies like third positionism, which draws on kind of contemporary writers like Dungan and things like that. I think one of the interesting things about third positionism is that it does argue for kind of creating like a culturally relevant political philosophy, if that makes sense.
Yes, no,
So
that makes a lot of sense. Like, and I thought that that's why it was important to bring up that at one point, like, fascism was like just my primary lexicon, my primary definition for describing what I was, and that's how I was for a long time. That came from me like wanting to reject democracy, the modern world, and the current system as it is in the West, like entirely. And once I had cleared that slate, I started to just become sophisticated over time, and part of like gaining that that critical perspective, that sophistication was finding the words like third position, stuff that's not like just directly incite, like trying to incite other people to get upset or angry, but instead like trying to have like a real conversation about it. Because like it's like a lot of people, they hear third position and they don't like they don't spurg out, they kind of like, they're like, oh, what's that, what does that mean? And then you can like actually have a conversation about it rather than it turn into useless
I
argument.
understand. See, and that, but that's actually one of my critiques a little bit of third positionism is I would think being a true third positionist would in a way be not mentioning third positionism, right? Coming
Part
up
of
with a
it,
more,
yeah, because
coming up
like
with a more
ideally,
textually relevant
I
kind of terminology and things like that.
I feel like ideally you want to stay away from like too many definitions and too many like descriptive words.
Right.
Like you want to avoid too many labels and just instead focus on like talking about the problem. Like, like if you have a problem with the way that the capitalist system is, if you have a problem with the way that advertising works in the United States, if you have a problem with like corporations dictating to what the average citizen does, then have a conversation about those things rather than generals and just putting yourself at odds needlessly with other people.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. I think a lot of those differences come from different places, both kind of perspective and differences of strategy. But one thing I guess I would say on this topic is I think historically speaking, like within the 20th century, things like the original kind of fascist movements and even national socialist movements, they were very new at the time, right? They weren't really drawing on this kind of historical precedent. So what they were doing was very much creating something new rather than trying to copy the past. So I do kind of find that interesting. And that's one of the reasons I've used the word virtue socialism, because it does kind of combine two words that people don't have. I guess probably in that phrase, probably nowadays virtue is probably more triggering, right? Because it's kind of used as this slander to throw at SJWs. I've tried to recover that word a little bit and associate it more with Homeric virtue, even biblical virtue, Aristotle and things of that notion. And then socialism, obviously, that kind of is what it is. It's definitely not a left wing description of socialism by any means.
Yeah, like I especially like for me, like I think a good descriptor like is like I'm a nationalist and I'm a socialist in a lot of ways, but I would say primarily that I'm a localist. And what I mean by localist is that I would like to see in the future like us drawing more, relying more on like sustainable practices, like anything that fosters like a local community best. Those are the practices that I would like to achieve. Because I think people in general, like they're only able to like not only know so many people, but you're only going to be able to make an impact with so many people. So like how many friends I think can you have like in maximum? I think you can only know like 300 people at any given point. Well, like who would that include? That would include your family and probably, several other families. And that's what usually makes up a small township. And, how can you like what's going to be best for a small town, I would say that like a small town would be better off if it relied on itself for like its food. So it produced a lot of its own local food sources. That it primarily dealt with politics inside of the context of the township, rather than large spread out, like, I'm trying to get a guy to Washington kind of politics. And just anything that fosters the bonds to grow between people in a community. I think that's ideally what I like, what I want to strive for.
Yeah, I actually saw a tweet today, and maybe I'll try to screen cap it or find it, but it said, "My politics are small, walkable cities with local sustainable agriculture." And I thought that was kind of, yeah, exactly. And I personally do think you need to combine that with a bit of big game strategy as well, just because the way the world is set up, we're never going back to kind of like necessarily just small local communities growing their own food. There's always going to be kind of international competition and integration from this point forward. So to take that into account as well. But we need to be doing things that make life actually better for people, such as creating stronger communities, stronger people, things of that nature.
Yes, what is the biggest impact that you can have in life? The biggest impact that you can have in life is talking to and working with people directly in your own life. So politics is all well and good when you're talking about theory and like reading books and making videos and all that. That's all well and good. But at the end of the day, does it really help grandma? Does it really help your friend? Does it really like address the needs and the issues that the average and regular people are having in your own life? What should matter to you the most is that your grandma is getting her groceries home every week that she needs it, more than, well, how do I come up with the perfect economic system? I really think that the other people and their needs and their desires, like those things, are extremely important, and more important a lot than political theory.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool perspective. And you actually mentioned like creating videos, and I wanted to actually ask you about that, because I know you're big into content creation and you do a little bit of work behind the scenes. So I just kind of wanted to ask you what kind of, maybe not on the ground work, maybe not talking to people in your own community, but what sort of content creation do you do, or what sort of online political work do you do, maybe to inspire the audience for some things that they could do as well?
Inspire them for what they could do as well. Mm-hmm.
First, what are you doing right now in terms of content creation?
What I'm doing right now in terms of content creation is that I'm making a few YouTube videos here and there on my YouTube channel. My production has greatly slowed down ever since I started doing more video editing work for other people. So I started doing work for Keith Woods. I also do work for Antunes, and I did work for Zoltanis, and also Just a Robot. And most of those people, of course, share a lot of our perspectives. And like a lot of like a lot of the stuff that I do takes up a ton of time for me to do, so it doesn't give me as much opportunity to work on my own videos. But whenever I am working on my own videos, a lot of my videos, like I said, are experiential, but I actually make like 3 types of video, I would say. I have a political type video, which are my green videos. I color code all my videos, and if you go to my channel, you can see that all my videos have a particular color of thumbnail, and the green thumbnail is usually, that's my political theory and beliefs, my political perspectives. My yellow videos, or orange, I should say, orange videos, those are my thought bite videos. So basically, it could be anything from a 3-minute video to a 20-minute video, just going over anything that I find particularly interesting, whether that's a general life experience, or it's like something on, like, an observation that I made on something. Actually, one of my most popular videos is called The Philosophy of Super Straight, in which all I did was I kind of found out what super straight was. I put it into words, and then I kind of like made a video explaining the whole thing, and that ended up getting like 7,000 views. Unfortunately, one of my most popular videos, but because the whole thing was just silly. But then there's another video that I made that I took a lot of time and research to create, and that was called "Inflicting Your Trauma on the World," which was a video about more like the philosophy of Marilyn Manson, and just talking about like his life and how he's kind of like taken his own personal neuroses and decided that he was going to like wage war on the world with those neuroses. And so like the whole video is kind of like a psychological and philosophical exploration of the character of Marilyn Manson, and that was one of my favorite videos to do. And then there is my red videos, and my red videos are about my my personal experiences, but like ones that are extremely close to my heart. So I typically take a lot longer to work on those videos, and I release them much more sparingly. And that was like one of those videos I mentioned, The Ruins of Men's Visions. But like I've also made another one that was pretty popular called He Who Betrays Himself, in which I talked about a friend who basically like who more or less became similar to his father, whom he hated. And I had a bad experience with him, so I kind of talked about it. And of course, I always removed names and changed details in a story in order to make it more general. But that's what I do. A lot of my videos also, I would say, they have a particular artistic sense to them. Like I use a lot of stock footage, and I create a lot of stock footage. Like I will go out and record like images in my environment. I will record videos in my environment. I really love the idea of like still life, or like staying in one place and witnessing like what's happening around you. And so a lot of my videos are like that, where they're like pictures of the landscape, video of the landscape, video of like these like of flowers and like water and like all that stuff. Like it doesn't always like include like me, doing stuff as much as it is my perspective on the world around me. And I mix that with like this very like sort of calming, but also like beat style type music. I make use of a lot of like lo-fi hip hop in my videos, and I think like the more my videos you'll watch, you'll kind of see that.
All right, I'm gonna give you a recommendation really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Lo-fi classical music.
Oh yes, I have seen a couple of those before, and
Dude,
I do like them.
So good. It's so good. In any case, okay, that's really awesome. You seem extremely talented and like very devoted. And I wanted to ask you if you have any advice for people who want to start making right-wing content, either as a podcast or as a video editor or even a graphic designer. What would you say to them?
Do it, and do it not only for the desire to disseminate an idea, but for the art of it. I think that's one thing that a lot of people in our sphere unfortunately miss, is that they go to make something and they make it like very poorly, and I don't know I don't think it's like always intentional. It's like they don't have the skills, and they don't understand it. But hey, if you're doing something, you may as well do it well. So why not, learn how to balance your audio properly, learn how to edit a video, basically learn how to write a script and write it well, learn how to learn all the ins and out of the craft that you're going for. If you want to design graphics and make good posters, then learn how to use Photoshop, learn how to use Illustrator properly. You don't have to, you can use other photo editing programs like GIMP, but but the point is this, is that you should try to learn. So like, not only like try to improve from where you were, like with just the style of content that you're doing like before, but also like with each subsequent like thing that you release, try to make it better than the last. So my advice is to definitely like learn your craft, understand your tools, and do it not only for the sake of the content, but also for the art.
Nice. And now I want to move on a little bit. I was going to ask, what kind of quote usually stands out in your head? What kind of quote do you all friends kind of go back to, or maxim or aphorism or something of that nature? Do you have a favorite quote?
Yes.
And what is the importance of it? What is the significance?
So the quote is by Aldous Huxley, and it goes like this: experience is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. And what I like so much about that quote is that it makes you take responsibility for who you are and where you are in life, and that no matter like what experience you have with life, it's a new opportunity for you to learn from that experience, to understand yourself or other people a bit better, to and like for me, like I guess what like I printed out that I printed out that quote and stuck it on my wall for a good 2 years, because it had such a significant impact on me. Just to you have experiences in life, and they're your experiences, and how you choose to tell those stories, how you choose to incorporate those lessons into your own life, it's really all up to you. So it's not just it's not just that experiences are a series of things that happen to you, but rather it's a series of things that you did as a result of those things.
Huh, I like that quote. Kind of reminds me of an old Craft song I used to listen to.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Yeah. I'll find the lyrics and send them to you, and maybe you can throw it in the video. It's actually, but they're a very edgy kind of left-wing band at the same time. Now let's move on. I'm gonna add a new thing to my interviews. I'm gonna call this the canceled round. So I'm gonna ask you questions, and then possibly in 5 to 10 years you may be canceled. So the first question, and I'm just gonna throw out a topic. You tell me what you think. Okay.
Okay.
Flat Earth.
Very funny. Very funny. Like everybody, like a lot of the people, I don't think that there's a lot of people that genuinely believe it, but I do like pretending to genuinely believe it, because of how much it upsets some people for seemingly no reason. It's just a very like silly belief.
Elon Musk.
Mm.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. I think he's a very funny character, actually. Like he's like I don't know. I never really think much about him, except he's like just this billionaire African, guy. So it's like he's cool, I guess. Yeah.
I like his systematic thinking. He has a very schematic way of thinking.
Mm.
And today he made a pro-natalist tweet. So I thought that was interesting. It's
it
about
makes
the
sense.
collapse of predictions.
He had
Yeah, I guess he has 6 kids.
he has 10 kids.
Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, good for him. Well, smart man. That's a good idea. We need more smart people for our kids. Pineapples on pizza.
I love it, honestly. I'm the kind of guy. One of my favorite.
What does it pair best with? Olives or green peppers? Olives or green peppers?
Olives or green peppers? Only that.
Black olives or green peppers?
I would put both. Honestly, but I would say I like olives better. But I do like pineapple with chicken. That's what I used to get a lot. Pineapple chicken pizza from Domino's specifically.
Ah, okay. And then the final one is, so this is kind of in tangent with the Elon Musk one. If we end up finding out that there are aliens on a place like Mars, should we enslave them and establish humanity as a global master race? And if so, how best to do that?
Well, I would say we should just kill them because I don't.
Total extermination,
Good.
genocide them?
Yeah, I do not like aliens. I hate aliens. I think that they should be shot. But like if there are aliens and we do enslave them, then they should be like very, very low like mine workers, and nobody should be permitted to be alone with them for any extended period of time, because I have a feeling that there will be people out there that are tempted to have sex with the aliens, and we should not let them have sex with the aliens. That would be very bad.
We can't let the intergalactic degeneracy spread.
Nope. And which will happen if there is aliens. The first thing that people are going to think is like, can I have sex with an alien? And then no, we're not going to let you. You will not have sex with the aliens.
I haven't thought about that, but I don't doubt that is going to happen if we do discover aliens. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Can you tell us where to find you, or first tell us, are there any projects coming up that you want to let people know about?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I actually do have a couple. So I am working on a video called The History of British Animation. That's going to be coming out on Antunes channel. I will be sure to put it on my Telegram channel, which you can also find on Telegram. And you can watch it on YouTube. Let's see. I also have a couple of videos that I'm working on myself. Let me pull up my little script here, my scripts here. Oh yeah, Living with the Anguish of Guilt. That's one that I'm going to be working up, or Living with the Anguish of Regret. That's what it's called. I recorded audio for that, and that one is going to be kind of like, it's kind of self-explanatory, that like living with past regrets and with stuff that I've been through personally, and like and stuff that I'm not proud of that I've done with my life.
Are you the sort of person that regrets things you've done or that you didn't do sooner?
I'm the kind of person that regrets things that I've done.
Okay. I'm usually the type of person that regrets things I didn't do sooner. As I get older, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But in any case, cool. And where do we find you? So you said YouTube,
Telegram, Twitter. I think those are my primary platforms, and it's all Censored Anon.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, man. And I look forward to possibly doing this again in the future, and looking forward to seeing those videos coming out soon.
Of course. Fantastic video. Thank you for having me on, Nico. I really appreciate it.
You as well. Awesome.